You think money can buy you out of anything? That morning in Providence Municipal Court, I watched wealth walk in and shrink to the size of a parking ticket. The day begins like so many others. Old benches, worn carpet, the quiet shuffle of people who missed a shift to be here. A man clutches an envelope marked rent. A woman studies her citation and a grocery list. Judge Frank Caprio sees faces like theirs every morning, people who feel every dollar they lose. He sits on the bench, glasses low, turning through a stack of small cases. Next up, hydrant parking. Simple, routine. Then an engine outside cuts through the murmur. Not the tired cough of old sedans. A smooth, heavy sound. Through the high windows, a black Cadillac Escalade glides to the curb. The paint throws back the gray sky. The driver steps out in a suit, walks to the rear door, and opens it with the ease of a man who has done it 1,000 times. She steps down. Mid-20s. Dark slacks, pale blouse, blazer that fits like it was made only for her. No loud logos, just the quiet shine of money. Slim gold watch, small studs, careful manicure. Her heels click an unhurried rhythm toward the entrance. In the hallway, voices dip. Someone mutters, "Must be lost." Another answers, "No, sir. This I gotta see." When she enters the courtroom, the air tightens. She doesn't glance at the gallery. Her eyes go straight to the bench, as if checking a name on an office door. Two men in dark suits follow. Not deputies. Earpieces, broad shoulders, that practiced sweep of the room. They move to stand behind her, one on each side. Judge Caprio looks up, one eyebrow lifting. "Gentlemen," he says, calm and flat, "we don't do entourages in here. This is a public courtroom. You're welcome to wait outside." The guards hesitate, glance toward her. She doesn't turn. One brief nod, and they peel away to the hall. The clerk reads the case. Hydrant violation. The file that lands on the bench says otherwise. It's thick. 5 tickets are clipped together. Different dates, same license plate, same hydrant. Day after day, the same black SUV sat where no car is supposed to be. Caprio rests his thumb on the stack. 1 ticket is a mistake. 5 is a pattern. He looks up. She stands at the podium, one hand on the worn wood, a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. No apology, no nerves. She slips her phone into a handbag like she's settling in for a brief appointment. Around her, people who count dollars stare at someone who treats 5 tickets as a rounding error. Then he meets her gaze. Not defiant, not afraid, just utterly sure that none of this can really touch her. And in that instant, he knows. This is not a simple morning, and this is not just another ticket. She stands there with that practiced ease, chin lifted just enough to signal she's not used to waiting for anyone. But the moment she speaks, the room understands. This confidence wasn't born here. It was manufactured somewhere far away, polished by people who shielded her from consequences. "My attorney already handled this," she says, voice steady, almost bored. "I was told I only needed to sign whatever the court prepared." Judge Caprio flips a page. "Your attorney submitted nothing, miss." "Varden," she answers, smoothing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Alexis Varden." A ripple moves through the gallery. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a few exchanged glances, a murmured "oil money," and one man leaning in to whisper, "Her family owns half the wells in New Mexico." She pretends not to hear. Or maybe she truly doesn't care. But her composure isn't perfect. Her left thumb taps a nervous beat against the podium. Soft, quick, constant. The kind of tell lawyers usually coach out of you, unless the nerves run deeper than training. Caprio studies her. Miss Varden, your attorney did not file a motion, a letter, or a request. Nothing at all. She raises her chin a little higher. Then they must have made a mistake. Another file page rustles, a sound sharper than it should be in the quiet room. You've had several minor violations over the last few years, he notes calmly, each resolved by unspecified representation. She doesn't answer. Instead, her gaze drifts toward the door where her driver stands. He tries to look neutral but fails. His jaw is tight, his eyes fixed on her shoulders. Behind him, one of the private security men leans in, whispers something too softly for most to hear. Caprio hears enough. He taps his pen once on the desk. No instructions from the hallway. This is a courtroom, not a waiting room for advisors. The guard stiffens. The driver swallows. Alexis doesn't turn around, but a faint tremor runs through her breath. So faint only someone actually watching her hands would notice. The judge continues. Tell me about the dates of these violations. She answers too quickly. Nothing special. A beat of silence unravels the lie. Her academic record flashes in the file. Dropped out of a program in Colorado after a campus incident. The notes are vague, deliberate. Students like her have lawyers who keep details vague. You left university early, Caprio says, not accusingly, but with a measured tone. Something significant must have happened. She freezes for the smallest fraction of a second, then recovers with a practiced shrug. Misunderstandings happen. Her voice strains on the last word. And the day of your third violation? He asks gently. Where were you then? This time she falters. The mask slips. A shadow of panic flickers in her eyes, vanishing almost immediately. She wets her lips before answering. I don't remember. It was weeks ago. That day, Caprio reminds, the vehicle stayed parked beside the hydrant for nearly 20 hours. Her jaw tightens. The gallery senses a shift. Something more than entitlement. Something raw buried beneath her arrogance. She looks down for the first time. Her driver decides to intervene, stepping forward slightly before the judge holds up a hand, stopping him cold. No assistance, Caprio says firmly. Miss Varden can speak for herself. Her shoulders pull in just an inch, barely noticeable, but enough. She finally lifts her gaze. The calm facade is still there, but now it's stretched thin, like she's holding it together stitch by stitch. Those days were complicated, she says. I had family issues. Caprio hears what she doesn't say. The way the word family shakes a little. The room grows still. People who moments ago saw only privilege now sense something else underneath. Something brittle. Her polished world is cracking, and everyone feels it. And the judge, watching her struggle to maintain the image she arrived with, knows. The truth behind these 5 simple tickets has only begun to surface. Judge Caprio leans slightly forward, hands folded, voice gentle but direct. Miss Varden, why was your vehicle parked in a restricted zone for 3 consecutive days? Her answer slips out too fast. I wasn't driving it. He lifts the file. The footage shows you stepping out of the driver's seat each time. Gasps scatter across the room. Not loud, but unmistakably human. She steadies herself, but her breath stutters for a moment, the mask thinning around the edges. I must have mixed up the dates, she mutters. Caprio sets the papers down. Let's talk about the days in question. You stated earlier you were in Boston. Yes, she insists. I had errands there. He raises a page. Your debit card was used at a cafe less than a mile from that hydrant. Same morning as the second ticket. Her spine stiffens. For the first time, She's cornered in a way money can't smooth over. "I didn't use it," she whispers. "Then who did?" Silence. Her hand closes into a fist on the podium. She avoids the judge's eyes, staring instead at the polished floor, as if hoping it might open and swallow her before the questions can. "That's not relevant," she finally says. "Miss Varden," he replies, "truth is always relevant." Her jaw flexes, a muscle twitching near her temple. She's fought boardrooms, lawyers, executives, but this small courtroom with its worn benches is undoing her. Before she can answer, a thin voice rises from the seats. "I saw her." Everyone turns. An older woman stands slowly, bracing herself on a wooden cane. Her gray coat hangs loosely, and her eyes are steady in the way people's eyes get after outliving fear. "I saw her car," the woman says. "Every morning. Same spot. Blocked the hydrant each time." Alexis goes pale. The gallery shifts with quiet energy. The woman continues, voice soft but sure. "She wasn't laughing or talking on the phone. She was sitting in that car, crying." The room falls so silent, the fluorescent lights seem too loud. Alexis blinks hard, as if fighting something rising inside her. Caprio doesn't speak immediately. He lets the moment settle, lets her realize she's been seen. Not as a headline, not as an heiress, but as a young woman unraveling alone in a parked SUV. Finally, he says, "Is that true, Miss Varden?" Her breath catches, shoulders quivering for a heartbeat, before she wrestles herself back into control. "That woman doesn't know what she saw," she snaps, but the conviction isn't there. The words wobble. Caprio's voice softens. "These tickets aren't the real issue, are they?" She looks back at him, and something raw flickers through her expression, a mix of exhaustion, fear, and defiance. "You want the truth?" she murmurs. "You can't handle my truth." The gallery freezes. A driver shifts nervously near the door. Even the guard outside leans a fraction closer. Caprio holds her gaze, calm but firm. "Try me." For a second she seems ready to spill everything. The lie, the grief, whatever she's been holding tight enough to bruise her own palms. But she doesn't. She swallows it back down, locking it in behind that expensive composure, leaving the courtroom suspended in a fragile electric hush. The story behind those 5 tickets is no longer about parking. It's about something she's terrified to say aloud. And Caprio knows it. Whatever she's running from didn't happen on the street beside that hydrant. It happened inside her world, long before she set foot in this courtroom. Caprio takes a quiet breath, the kind he uses when a case stops being about laws and starts being about people. "Miss Varden," he says gently, "if you spent 3 days in that car, something pushed you there. You don't owe this room theatrics, just the truth." Her eyes flash with something sharp, almost panicked. She lifts her chin, but her voice betrays her. "I wasn't hiding," she starts, but the sentence dies halfway. He waits, not pressing, not threatening, just giving her space she clearly hasn't had in years. She grips the podium harder, knuckles whitening. "You don't understand what those days were like." "Help me understand," Caprio replies. She exhales shakily, then forces the words out as if they're tearing loose from somewhere deep. "The hospital called. My father collapsed. They said he might not wake up." A low murmur sweeps through the gallery. People who moments ago judged her now soften, but not completely. Something doesn't add up. Caprio leans forward. "Why hide that?" She hesitates. Her gaze drifts toward the courtroom door, as if checking whether she's being watched. "Because," she says quietly, "once you know he was in a coma, you'll ask where I was. And I can't answer that without telling you something worse." He keeps his voice steady. Then tell me the right thing. Her throat tightens. She looks down, her breath trembling. The car. It's not mine. Caprio glances at the file. He's already seen it. The registration. The unfamiliar name printed cleanly on the page. Not your father's either, he says. She nods once. The owner, he continues carefully, is someone you don't want to mention. Her silence confirms it. Finally, she lifts her eyes, haunted, exposed. It belongs to my mother. The room reacts with a collective shift. Her driver's shoulders tense. Even the guard outside straightens. Caprio studies her. Your mother who left when you were a child? She nods again, this time slower, heavier. She showed up out of nowhere, Alexis whispers. 17 years gone, then suddenly calling me, telling me to meet her here in Providence. She presses her palm against her forehead, fighting a wave of emotion. She insisted I use her car, said it mattered, said she needed proof of something. The last word cracks. Caprio's tone sharpens slightly. Proof for what? I don't know, Alexis bursts out. She wouldn't explain. She said it would protect us and that I had to trust her. She swallows hard, but it felt wrong, like she was pulling me into something I couldn't see. The judge doesn't interrupt. He lets the confession unwind at its own painful pace. She kept calling, Alexis continues, voice shaking, pressuring me, demanding I park the car where she said. I thought it was some dramatic attempt to reconnect. I didn't realize she was using me. A faint tremor runs through her. The mask she walked in with, the privilege, the arrogance, has dissolved into something painfully human. I didn't tell my father, she says, because he hates her. And I didn't tell the hospital because they wouldn't let me in unless I confirmed who I was with. And I didn't tell the police because… She stops, breath catching. Because I knew she had a reason for making me park there. A reason she wouldn't share. The gallery listens, spellbound. Even those who came for a quick, fine hearing are now hanging on every word. Caprio considers her carefully. You believe your mother put you in a position that could harm you. A single tear slips down her cheek, the first she doesn't try to conceal. I was terrified, she whispers. Terrified she came back only to drag me into something I didn't choose. Her voice breaks once more. And even more terrified that I'd let her. The judge sits back, the weight of her confession settling over the room like a thick, uneasy fog. This isn't a messy family reunion. It's a fracture, reopened by someone who vanished and returned with unknown motives. And now everyone in the courtroom understands. These 5 parking tickets are just the visible cracks of a much deeper fault line running through her life. Caprio folds his hands, letting the room settle. The tension is no longer sharp. It's heavy, softened by sorrow rather than conflict. Miss Varden, he begins, tickets don't trouble me. But the story you've told, that carries weight. She keeps her eyes down. The polished confidence she arrived with has vanished. What remains is a young woman standing in front of strangers, stripped of every shield she ever relied on. He continues, voice low, steady. You weren't avoiding the law. You were avoiding yourself. A hush falls. Even the air seems to pause. Alexis's breath shudders, but she doesn't speak. She's holding on by a thread. Caprio's tone hardens just slightly. Not unkind, but firm. Running with the engine off is still running, Miss Varden. And those 3 days alone in that car, they weren't about hydrants or maps or schedules. He pauses. They were about fear. Something in her crumbles. She lifts her head, and the facade collapses entirely. My father controlled every part of my life, she says, barely above a whisper. He meant well, I think. Or maybe he didn't. I can't tell anymore. Her voice wavers. Every mistake I made in college was covered. Every problem solved before I even knew there was one. Her fingers tighten around the podium as though she's holding onto it to stay upright. When my mother called, she continues, she said he'd lied to me, that he'd kept things hidden, that she had the truth. And I wanted to believe her. I wanted someone to treat me like an adult instead of a liability. A tear slides down her cheek, then another. But she wasn't there to help me, she says. She wanted something. I still don't know what. I followed her instructions for one day, then another, and then I realized she didn't care what happened to me. I was just a piece on her board. Her voice breaks completely. I stayed in that car because I didn't know where else to go. I didn't want to go to the hospital alone. I didn't want to see my mother again. And I didn't want to call the only parent I had left because I was afraid he'd say, I told you so. Her knees weaken. The driver takes a step toward her, but she lifts her hand slightly, a signal she doesn't need rescuing this time. The courtroom is silent. Older faces in the gallery soften. Some nod with a quiet understanding shaped by decades of family battles, reconciliations, and regrets. Caprio leans in, voice warm, grounded, unmistakably sincere. In this city, he says, we learn that responsibility makes you stronger, not smaller. You're not here because you parked illegally. You're here because you've been taught to hide behind other people's decisions, good and bad. She sniffles, wiping her cheek with the back of her hand. He continues, each word chosen carefully. Your father's mistakes don't define you. Neither do your mother's. What defines you is the moment you decide to stop running from the person you are meant to become. He lets that sink in. The room fills with a quiet, respectful silence, the kind that comes when truth lands exactly where it needs to. Now, Caprio reaches for the stack of tickets. 3 citations, he says, were issued during overlapping hours. The evidence is unclear. I am dismissing them. A soft, surprised exhale escapes her. But 2 violations are valid, he adds, and they will remain. Not as punishment, but as a reminder. She swallows. A reminder of what? That freedom isn't walking away, he answers. It's standing still long enough to face what hurts. She covers her mouth, overwhelmed, and for the first time since stepping into the courtroom, she looks relieved. Not because she escaped something, but because she finally stopped carrying it alone. Caprio nods gently. You're stronger than you think, Miss Varden. But strength without honesty is just armor. And armor gets heavy. A tearful smile flickers across her face. Small, fragile, the first genuine one of the morning. The judge closes the folder. Case resolved. But the story, hers, is far from finished. The room empties slowly, footsteps echoing off the tile, murmurs fading into the hallway. Papers rustle, benches creak, and soon the courtroom settles back into its familiar quiet. Alexis doesn't move. Her driver stands near the door, waiting for a cue. One of the security men leans forward slightly, ready to escort her out. But she lifts her hand, a small, tired gesture, and they both freeze. For the first time today, she isn't performing for anyone. She steps toward the bench, hesitant but determined, the echo of her heels no longer a declaration of power, just a steady, human sound. Judge Caprio, she says softly. He looks up from his paperwork with that warm, patient expression older Americans know well. The expression of someone who has seen generations walk in burdened and walk out lighter. I wanted to say, she struggles, searching for a place to begin. You're the first person who's spoken to me without wanting something in return. Her voice trembles, not with fear, but with sincerity. No advisor, no lawyer, no agenda, just truth. He smiles gently. Truth is the simplest gift I can offer. Her breath catches at that, a line she didn't expect to hear from a man who could have treated her like every stereotype her surname carries. Before she can answer, her phone vibrates in her hand. She glances down mechanically, then freezes. Every bit of color drains from her face. Caprio notices immediately. Miss Varden? Is everything all right? She swallows, staring at the glowing screen as though it might vanish if she blinks. It's the hospital, she whispers. They wouldn't be calling unless… She trails off, unable to finish the sentence. The courtroom is almost empty, but for a moment it feels full again, filled with invisible witnesses holding their breath. She presses the phone to her ear. Yes? A pause. Her lips part. Her eyes widen. He woke up? The words come out broken, disbelieving. Her driver's head snaps up. Even the guard by the hall leans in closer, tension melting into stunned relief. Alexis turns away, covering her mouth as tears spill freely. Not the frantic, frightened tears from those 3 days in her car, but a release so long delayed it shakes her shoulders. Caprio waits, giving her the space to absorb the news. When she finally lowers the phone, she exhales shakily, as though she's been underwater for months and only now reached the surface. He's awake, she says again, this time steadier. My father. He's awake. The judge nods once, slowly, like a man acknowledging a miracle without needing to question it. Then you have your beginning, he says. She steps closer, her voice trembling but full of a new, unfamiliar courage. Judge, if it's all right with you, I'd like to come back. Not for fines, not for hearings, just… She hesitates, searching for the right word. Just to learn how to be someone I can respect. Caprio's smile is small but unmistakably proud, the kind that carries decades of empathy behind it. My door is open, he says. You know where to find me. For a moment she simply stands there, soaking in the warmth of a promise she didn't expect. A promise of guidance, of second chances, of a life not dictated by wealth or absence or manipulation. Then she gathers herself, wipes her cheeks, and turns toward the exit. The guards fall in behind her, but they no longer look like a shield she hides behind. They look like background noise to a woman who has finally stepped forward on her own feet. At the doorway, she pauses. Just once. Just long enough to meet Caprio's eyes with a quiet, grateful nod. He nods back. She leaves the courtroom, not as the arrogant daughter of an oil magnate, but as someone beginning again. And in the fading echo of her steps, the room feels fuller than before, holding the afterglow of a story that resolved, yet still promises something more just beyond the next page.